patients know what patients need. And there is never been a more true or factual statement. There are sometimes tips and tricks that physicians don't give you, or the healthcare system can really just eat you alive. And other patients can give you insight and tips that you may not encounter were it not for being in contact with another patient. So I did exactly that. I reached out to other women who had been through this type of thing in my network. I went online. I found patient communities online, which thankfully that's nice and accessible in this internet age.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Sylvis, ready to unlock the keys to a life of true abundance. We're diving into everything from financial freedom and optimal health to meaningful relationships, geographic freedom, and everything in between. It's about creating a life rich in experiences, purpose, and joy. Get ready for empowering conversations, expert insights, and real-life stories that inspire you to live abundantly. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast community. Hello. This is Amy, back for another solo episode. For those of you who may not be familiar with the podcast, my name is Amy Sylvis. I am the founder and principal of Sylvis Capital, and we connect investors to hands-off real estate investing opportunities to generate passive income. And we love abundance on this podcast, hence the name. And these solo episodes, we like to typically talk about the vehicles to abundance instead of the destination. But on this episode, we're going to share a little bit more of a personal journey. I am in my summer nautical themed sweater because it's almost the end of June and hey, it's summer. Might as well enjoy ourselves and feel the season on the episode, right? All right. Well, I want to catch you all up on a few things. I actually had a bit of a health scare that I wanted to share with you all. And I wanted to share not only just that update, but I also wanted to let you know how I navigate health challenges. I live with cystic fibrosis, which is a lung condition primarily. When I was born in 1981, most people with CF were living to be in their teens or maybe late teens, early 20s at best. And thankfully, I got a miracle drug in 2019 that really completely changed the face of CF healthcare for many people, myself included. CF is not gone. It's not a cure, but gosh, it's hard to even put into words how much healthier I am. I'm no longer in and out of the hospital with CF related things. And yeah, I'm able to live life on my terms, which is so incredible. But the reality of being almost 44 years old is I get to have non-CF normal people things. So I say that in a little bit of a giggle because it's just such an interesting experience, right? To grow older, to have that privilege, but also to know that privilege comes with bumps in the road sometimes. And as a result of my lived experience with CF, I have quite a number of what I think are healthcare hacks that I wanted to share with you all because let's face it, abundance is health. If we don't have our health, it's really tough to live life the way that we want and do the things that we want to do, spend the time with the people we want to spend time with, and even be where we want to be. So this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode to just update you all, but I did really want to use this as an opportunity to share some of my health hacks with you all that I think you'd find valuable. Okay, so what happened? What's the story? Well, the story is back in January. I live in Los Angeles, for those of you who don't know, and thankfully our home was not impacted by the fires in terms of having to be evacuated because we were in danger. But sadly, because of all the smoke, and my lungs are in incredible shape, but I still treat them with quite a bit of care and caution. So I evacuated for over a week outside of Los Angeles to make sure to take care of myself and stay away from the fire, the smoke. And while I was away in a hotel protecting my health, I found a lump in my breast, something that really caught me off guard. For most of you probably know, you start getting routine mammograms at age 40. So as a 43-year-old, I'd already had several, and this, to my knowledge, hadn't shown up on any mammograms prior. So this took me on an adventure when things were already pretty chaotic, just in terms of Los Angeles and where I was living and what was open. And there was a lot going on in LA. And I was not living at home, but I had to visit my doctor to get examined and understand what was going on in my breast. So fast forward a couple of weeks, I went in, got a mammogram, and and an ultrasound, and they decided to do a biopsy, and where they take just, 3 little sections of the lump to see and understand what it was. So given my age, given my family history, all of those things and what was showing up on the ultrasound and the mammogram, it was likely not anything big or problematic, but you never know, right? That's why biopsies exist. So got the biopsy and then the waiting, right? If any of you have gone through a biopsy for any reason or had friends or family go through it, that's a scary time to wait. And we received the report from the pathology and it said, well, hey, it looks like it's probably nothing, but there's an off chance that it could be malignant. And we won't really know until the entire lump is taken out. It was one of those moments of like, well, wait a minute. Why did we, what's the point of the biopsy if we didn't know if that wasn't going to give us some sort of determination of what this thing was? But this is a learning curve for me. And any of you who've been through health challenges probably know that we're not all doctors, right? I'm certainly not. And we don't intrinsically know and understand everything about what might be going on with our bodies. So I found out that there is a rare type of tumor that is not homogeneous, meaning that certain parts of the tumor can look completely fine, and then other areas or other parts may be problematic. So if you think of a marble and we just sample 3 little parts of the marble, we may not have sampled the area that was problematic. So admittedly, not a reassuring thing to hear because I didn't want to go under the knife. I didn't want to have another experience where I had to get not another biopsy, but essentially an excision of my breast. But at the same time, of course, preventative medicine is the best medicine. And we really needed to figure out what was going on and figure that out definitively. Okay, so getting the pathology report from the biopsy, this leads me to my first 2 tips. So I'm going to intersperse my tips in this story. But the first tip is, and what I went to do, which was get a second opinion. And I understand that that is a very privileged thing. I have health insurance. I have the ability to pay copays and transportation and access to other physicians. But my goodness, if you're able to, I think that's one of the most eye-opening things for me through my healthcare journey is the fact that you're not going to really find ever 2 physicians that agree with each other on everything. And healthcare outcomes are essentially a bell curve where there's this kind of dismal healthcare outcome that you could receive on the tail end of a bell curve. And then there's this kind of average middle where most people and their healthcare fall. And then there's the tail end on the right side that is exceptional, that is rare, but in a good sense. There's actually a really great article in the New Yorker that's old, called The Bell Curve by Atul Gawande. If you're interested in understanding healthcare, it's a fascinating article. I'll make sure to link it in the comments. But all that is to say, for major things in my healthcare journey, again, recognizing that it's a privilege, I always get a second opinion because there are definitely times in my life where I've learned something new, I've found a different perspective, I've gotten better care or something else to consider. So I did that with this breast lump as well. And the second tip, which I also did, is get in community with people who have been through what you're going through health-wise. So making sure to find other people, whether it's online, whether it's in person, who have gone through, at least in my case, a breast biopsy, needing to get an excision, going to get a second opinion. All of these things, not only is there emotional support, but you may remember we had e-patient Dave here on the podcast several months ago, but his term is patients know what patients need. And there is never been a more true or factual statement. There are sometimes tips and tricks that physicians don't give you, or the healthcare system can really just eat you alive. And other patients can give you insight and tips that you may not encounter were it not for being in contact with another patient. So I did exactly that. I reached out to other women who had been through this type of thing in my network. I went online. I found patient communities online, which thankfully that's nice and accessible in this internet age. I'm dating myself, but that wasn't always the case. In the 80s and 90s, I remember it vividly. And so that's the second tip there. And I'll give you the third tip before I finish up the story. I know everyone wants to hear the end. Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. We'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to sylviscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is sylviscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. But the third tip is to educate myself on what was going on. So there's this thing called Open Notes where everyone in the United States should have digital access to their test results, to their physician visit notes. All of that is available in the electronic health medical records. So I took a look at not only having a conversation with my physician and the second opinion that I got, but also took a look at my notes to understand the exact terminology of what was going on with me. What I had was a fibroepithelial lesion. So learning that term, looking it up on the internet, asking ChatGPT about it and understanding that, hey, a fibroepithelial lesion could be either a fibroadenoma, typically benign, or a phylloides tumor. That's that kind of tumor that could be totally fine as well, or could be that heterogeneous in presentation where you take a little sample of it, a little biopsy, and it looks fine in one way, but you turn it over on the other side, maybe where you didn't biopsy, and it's not great. So empowering myself, whether cystic fibrosis or a breast lump or any other thing, but really taking the time myself to learn and understand what is going on and why we're doing what we're doing empowers me and will empower you as a patient to make the best decision possible. So getting a second opinion, making sure to connect with other patients online or in person because patients know what patients need. And then, of course, doing your own research, which I've seen some physicians say that Google isn't your doctor. Well, okay. But also, it's just wrapping your arms around what's happening so that you can make a decision for yourself and not just be swallowed up by the system, because that's real. Okay. So I ended up getting the breast excision about almost 3 weeks ago now at the physician where I went to get the second opinion. And everything turned out fine. It turns out I had a fibroadenoma, so completely benign, no threats. The sucker was taken out. I got to get really cool pictures of it. I'm weird that way. I really like to see pictures of things. I have my appendix out. I have my gallbladder out. I wanted pictures of all of those things. So now I have my picture of my fibroadenoma that's completely benign. But what an eye-opening experience, because I think 12% of women in the United States will get breast cancer in their lives. And that's not a small number. And I'm very, very grateful, as you can imagine, that the lump ended up being completely benign and no threat to my health, and that's behind me. I'm also really grateful for the empathy of this lived experience because, gosh, who doesn't want to show up and be supportive of friends and people around them that may be going through something? Having this understanding now of, gosh, getting a biopsy, having it really not tell you a whole lot in terms of if you actually have cancer or not, having to get a second procedure that's even bigger and removing a larger lump and then waiting and waiting for those results while you're recovering from this invasive surgery. Gosh. And some people get that reply, that answer, that what's the word I'm looking for? That pathology report that they have cancer. That's a tough road. And obviously, I wish I could wave a magic wand and get rid of everyone's health challenges. But the second best thing I can do is to be an empathetic, warm, caring person that can walk alongside someone. And although I don't have cancer and I'm incredibly grateful for it, I feel like I have a little bit more of an understanding of what this journey must be like for some women and, quite frankly, some men. So I really share this because I wanted to give you my basic tips, and maybe they seem obvious to you, but for other people, they may not. There's a lot you can do as a patient if you have a possible new diagnosis, of getting a second opinion, of informing yourself about what exactly is going on with your body and getting in touch with other people who have gone through or are going through the journey that you're going through. There's so much power there. And then regardless of the outcome, figuring out how you might be able to be a blessing or a resource or just an empathetic ear to someone in the future, given your experience, I think can be powerful as well. So I'm not sitting here saying I'm some magical person because I now have this experience, but I think everyone listening to this podcast feels the abundance of being able to show up for others in their time of need, and what a blessing it is to have an even deeper understanding. I wish I didn't have to go through all of this. Trust me, I'm not saying I'm glad I went through it, but since I didn't have a choice, how can I leverage that to show up for other people? So a shorter episode today, but that's what life has been like for me over the past several months while still recording the podcast and sharing on social media. And we closed a 400 unit property with our investors in Dallas, Fort Worth, and now it's summer. But life continues to life, doesn't it? And we must continue to find abundance no matter what life throws at us, which sounds a little overly rosy perhaps, but I truly believe it with all of my heart. I hope you all are having a wonderful summer, and I look forward to talking to you on the next episode. And thanks for coming along with me on this journey. I think there's something very powerful about us being real with each other and sharing what we learn along the way. And that's what this episode was all about. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Share this with someone if you think it can help them on their health journey to feel like they're not alone. And we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Sylvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.